Hey everyone, welcome to the start of a new series. Now, this series is all about statistics and data collection. So, for the start of this video, I just wanted to reintroduce some of the main forms of data we can collect, as well as revise some ideas about surveys as well as sampling. So taking data from a sample of a population and how this process works when applied to larger populations through statistical analysis. Now, firstly, when we want to collect data, so this is all about taking a population, for example. So all these people in a population, let's just draw a bunch of people here. So a population is defined as a group of people with something in common. Okay, so examples of this can include, for example, we have all the people in a country, for example. So people in a country. A population can also be, for example, total students in a school. In a school. And a bunch of other things can be applicable here. So all the people in a math class, for example, like all of the animals in Sydney, Australia. So it can be any sort of group which has something in common. Now, when we sample things from this, we are taking a small part of this population. So if we take, for example, what we're going to do when we sample is we're going to take a sample of the population here, bring it out here. So this is our sample. And this is like my one person here. Obviously with sampling, we're going to include groups of people. But basically a sample is a group chosen from the population. Now, what the essence of statistics is and data and sampling is taking this small group, collecting information about this group through surveys. And once we get this data and information, we try to use that to apply it back and make judgments about an entire population again. Now, these samples, or surveys as we call them, this is how we are going to collect our data. So surveys are used to collect data. Okay, now, once we collect our data, there are a couple of things that we need to consider. Now, some of you may find this idea a little bit strange. The idea of taking a small part of the population, getting information, and then applying it to a larger group. Now, if that seems to you a little bit strange, that's good, because we need to treat this whole process quite carefully, because when we select a small sample, a little tiny fraction of our entire population, we need to survey this sample with care. So we need to avoid things like bias or questions that aren't ambiguous. Because if we don't treat this carefully, it can lead to many statistical issues. And when we look at this on a larger scale in terms of government, legislation, things like that, we need to make sure the samples we're collecting and the surveys we're undertaking aren't biased or flawed in any way. So let's look at an example of this, because the idea of surveying and sampling is it's a bit of a double-edged sword. In one sense, it's good because where a small bit of information can inform a larger group, but it can also be a little bit problematic. So let's look at an example here. So say you went to your local swimming pool. So say council officials in the in wherever you live go to a local swimming pool and they survey people about whether they think a new pool should be built. So you collect a few people. So you take a sample of the whole population. So here our population might be everyone in a suburb because a council is undertaking this survey. So my population is everyone in a suburb. And you go to this local pool and you ask them a series of questions, but one of the main questions you ask them is, should the council invest in a new pool? Now, let's think about this for a minute. Let's think of where this may be flawed and how this can maybe skew the data in a sort of unbiased way. You are going to an actual pool and you are asking people, should we invest in a new pool? Well, of course the people going to the pool are going to say, yeah, that's a great idea. So all of these guys here, they're going to say, yes. Yes, of course we need a new pool. Now this is great, and I'm sure a swimming pool could be beneficial in a community, but we have to be careful with the sample we're taking. So in this case, our sample is pool goers, people that go to the pool. Now, if the only people you're asking in your little sample, your little snapshot of the population, if those people are people that regularly go to the swimming pool, this is a type of biased data, and we are getting our data from a place that's not evenly balanced. Because if you went somewhere other than a swimming pool, then you may get people that say, well, no, the money should go to a library or to fixing the roads. Now, just taking this sample from a certain part of the population is quite flawed. So this can lead to a biased sample. A biased sample which is going to skew the data here. So when we deal with surveying samples of a population, we need to be very careful who we are interviewing. We need to make sure that, first of all, we need to construct the survey questions carefully so we know the exact answer we're giving. We can't have ambiguity in our survey, and the sample we choose has to be representative of the entire population. Now, this doesn't mean we have to go interview everyone in the actual suburb. The essence of sampling is that it's easier to do because it's a smaller group, but we need a more well-balanced and equally representative set of people of the entire population. Now, this is really the essence of statistics. And when we do these types of questions, you'll notice there's a lot less maths involved, but more analysis of data. And this is going to require us to do some critical thinking as well. To look at, well, is the sample we've collected valid? Is this unbiased? Because this has, if we think about it, it has a lot of greater implications. If we dangerously sort of take a particular sample, a very skewed sample, and use that to make decisions about an entire nation, use this to inform government legislation and policies with skewed data, this can lead to really severe consequences. But this is just a little bit of an introduction into collecting data and some of the dangers associated with it when you look at how this affects policies and just general government decisions. So we need to really think critically when we work our way through this topic, and some of these questions are going to require us to give longer answers and actually explain our thinking here. But that brings us to the end of our little introduction here, and in the next video we're going to start talking about some of the categories and different types of data we will come across. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.